After a man with a long and disturbing criminal history named George Floyd, who had fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system and was recently infected with COVID, died while in police custody in Minneapolis Memorial Day weekend of 2020, it kicked off nationwide riots and looting that went on for over a week. They started locally in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where Black Lives Matter supporters looted and burned countless local businesses and even took over the police station and burnt that down too. The riots and looting quickly spread to other cities across the country, largely due to the mainstream media fanning the flames of racial tensions by reporting half-truths and gaslighting, giving gullible people the impression that African Americans were being systematically hunted by police, and around every corner, black people minding their own business were being confronted by supposed white supremacists. By the time the riots finally ended, they caused $2 billion in damage and killed over 24 people. Celebrities are more than happy to pour gasoline on the fire, and many of them announced that they were donating money to bail out the rioters. Justin Timberlake, Chrissy Teigen, Steve Carell, Seth Rogen, and many more declared that they were on the side of the mob and were helping to fund them. Others, including John Legend, Lizzo, Natalie Portman, Common, and more, all signed a petition supporting the new anti-police agenda, calling for police departments to be defunded and shut down. Just days later, the Los Angeles mayor announced that he was cutting $100 to $150 million from the LAPD budget and diverting the money to communities of color. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio followed suit, saying that he was cutting the NYPD budget by $1 billion to defund the police. $1 billion. This just days after iconic stores like Macy's on Fifth Avenue had been looted because police were too busy dealing with rioters in other parts of the city. "We don't want no more police," one protest leader told Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey before the mob ran him out of an event for not supporting the cause. Defunding and disbanding police departments as part of the Black Lives Matter revolution certainly wasn't enough to satisfy the angry mob, so soon they began calling for TV shows and movies about cops to be canceled. The Washington Post led the charge with the headline, "Shut down all police movies and TV shows now." And just a few days later, the popular Cops reality show was pulled from TV because it glorified police. It had been on air for 33 seasons, beginning in 1989. Another popular cop reality show, Live PD, was also canceled. These unscripted series show the dangers police officers face firsthand, but since they humanized them, the Marxists wanted the shows banned. All this happened within 2 weeks of Black Lives Matter resurging. They even targeted Paw Patrol, a cartoon for kids about dogs who work a variety of jobs, like a Dalmatian firefighter, a bulldog construction worker, and a German Shepherd police officer. The left doesn't want children to have any positive depiction of police so they can more easily indoctrinate them into their nihilistic cult and the ACAB, the all cops are bastards ideology. It's a miracle Will Smith and Martin Lawrence didn't apologize for starring in the action comedy Bad Boys, since it makes cops seem funny and cool. Apple Music even added a notification when users tried the search feature for a day called a Blackout Tuesday to help raise awareness for Black Lives Matter, as if we hadn't been hearing enough about them on the news and social media. Instead of letting people find the music that they wanted to listen to, Apple replaced the browse feature with a special curated playlist containing Black Power music, including NWA's infamous F the Police. Mobs continued marching in the streets for months, claiming the United States is inherently racist against black people and that they're being oppressed by systemic racism that keeps them from succeeding in life. This while every major social media platform coddles and even gives them special perks and privileges. The terms of service forbidding things like hate speech, harassment, and inciting violence are never really enforced when such violations are made by non-white users. Systemic anti-whiteism is sadly the norm now. During the 2020 riots, countless major corporations, including Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, Disney, McDonald's, Starbucks, Bank of America, and others, released statements declaring their support for the Black Lives Matter movement and donated hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars each to the Black Lives Matter cause, which we now know went to help the leadership buy multi-million-dollar mansions. Cable networks, including the Discovery Channel and the Disney Channel, were airing Black Lives Matter PSAs, and several video games, including Call of Duty and FIFA 20, a soccer game, added a Black Lives Matter message every time the games were booted. The NBA even painted a giant Black Lives Matter banner on the basketball court where all the games were being held during the COVID lockdowns. The 2020 Black Lives Matter riots were in the middle of the pandemic, you recall, during the lockdowns and before any of the vaccines, when Facebook was banning people for organizing protests against the COVID lockdowns, but of course allowed the George Floyd riots to continue, and cowardly Dr. Fauci wouldn't even tell them that they should be social distancing instead of gathering in large groups like they were. Black Lives Matter is not about ending racism or helping black people. It's a front for a neo-Marxist movement attempting to overthrow the United States government and uproot our constitutional republic. One of the original founders of the movement, Patrisse Cullors, openly admits that she's a Marxist, and her intellectual influences are Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, and Mao Zedong. Other Black Lives Matter leaders like Yusra Kogali, or however the hell you pronounce her name, have written despicable anti-white diatribes calling white people, quote, subhuman, and saying that they have, quote, genetic defects. They're also calling for a universal basic income, a UBI, universal health care, reparations for slavery, the release of all, quote, political prisoners, meaning black people incarcerated for committing any crime. And they want a massive redistribution of wealth. Such extremist ideas have been festering on the fringes of the Black Power movement since the 1960s, but now they have the unwavering support of virtually every celebrity, and the entire Hollywood machine has been recalibrated to promote their cause. While Martin Luther King wanted everyone to judge their fellow man by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, the liberal establishment uses identity politics to pit the different races against each other and are trying to create a culture in which white people are ashamed of being white and feel like they need to atone for their white privilege by paying reparations to black people and giving them special perks in America just because of their race. Online outlets like Salon, BuzzFeed, and Vice are notorious for their anti-whiteism. MTV did a whole documentary titled White People that depicts the entire race as a group whose very existence is based on oppressing black people and people of color. Remember that? Hollywood constantly complains about white people with campaigns like the Oscars are too white, and they're always crying about how there isn't enough diversity in leading roles. When hosting Saturday Night Live to promote his new movie Django Unchained, actor Jamie Foxx bragged about, well, have a look.
Django Unchained, I play a slave. How black is that? And in the movie I have to wear chains. How whack is that? But don't be worried about it, because I get out the chains, I get free, I save my wife, and I kill all the white people in the movie. How great is that?
Meanwhile, CNN's Don Lemon says the biggest terrorist threat in America are white men, and CNN contributors and other cable news pundits go so far as to say that blacks can't be racist and justify their racism against white people as payback for slavery in the 1800s. Just pointing out anti-whiteism is enough to get the Twitter mob and Operation Mockingbird mouthpieces to label someone a white supremacist, so most people are afraid to talk about it. But since it's gotten so obvious and so vicious, and people are talking about critical race theory, which again is just a fancy term for anti-whiteism, more and more Americans are waking up to what's going on and are finally starting to stand up against it. There's so much more that needs to be said, but the thought police may be watching, so if you like my serious monologues like this, you'll really love reading my books. So order The Liberal Media Industrial Complex or Hollywood Propaganda, How TV, Movies, and Music Shape Our Culture in paperback from Amazon.com, or download the ebooks from any of the major ebook stores, and of course there's a link to the Amazon listing in the description below. So head on over to Amazon.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.